Last time I made a bulkhead out of honeycomb core and laid fiberglass over the top of it. I also made a door for the bulkhead, and I made a wood inlay at the edge of the bulkhead and edge of the door where the hinges will go. And this time I'm going to use a piece of that thick fiberglass that I made out of 4 layers of 1708 that were laid up on the glass shower door. And this piece will be the thing that the door hits when it closes so it doesn't swing through to the other side. It's just like I did on the other bulkhead. And these 4 layers of 1708 is plenty thick enough to be strong enough for that purpose. So I'm roughing it up where I'm going to glue it to the bulkhead and rounding over the edge so there's not a sharp edge there. And after cleaning with acetone, I'm using thickened resin to glue it to the bulkhead. I'll put some weight on it and let it sit overnight. And because I remember from the previous bulkhead, I'm wiping off the glue that oozed out there now while it's soft instead of sawing it off tomorrow like I did with the first bulkhead. And this is tomorrow. And I'm just using the sander to soften that edge where that piece that's really 4 layers of 1708 is just glued on now. And I'm cutting some more 1708. There will be 3 layers that I lay alongside of this piece to kind of build up so that there isn't so much of a cliff there. And then a couple of much larger pieces that'll go over the top of all of this, and that's what'll really glue this to the bulkhead. So with each layer, I wet out the chopped strand side of the 1708 before flipping it over and putting that side down and then wetting out the back of it with the foam roller. And then I go over it again with the finned roller to get any air bubbles and stuff out of the layup. And I'm trying to space the hinges out about evenly. And this is, I'm drilling into that wood inlay that I put at the side of the bulkhead and also the side of the door, specifically for these screws to go into, because honeycomb core won't hold a screw. And I'm putting the screws in by hand so that I don't accidentally strip out the wood. And once the hinges are secured to the bulkhead, I can mark where the holes will be to be drilled on the door. And it's the same deal. I drill the holes and then put the screws in by hand. I understand why this happens now. This is where the hinges are. And if they're not parallel, like this piece is this way a little bit. So it sticks here. This is the bottom. Going this way, it's pretty much where it has to be. So this is a piece of that flange where the door would hit instead of going through to the other side that I had to cut out of the other bulkhead because the doorknob hardware had to go through the spot where this was. And I'm going to use a little bit of this right now as a shim to straighten up the door. And I think this is a better strategy than what I did before, which was to grind off parts of the door and the door frame to try and get them to line up. And yeah, fiberglass doesn't spark like that. I actually ground a little bit off of my vise because I was trying to cut this so close. So that's the part that I'll use as a shim. And you can see it has a significant thickness to it. And I actually used a couple of pieces of cardboard for shims on the two middle hinges. So the bottom one stays where it is, the top one has the thick shim, and the middle two have like progressively thicker cardboard shims at the moment. And now I'm ready to put on the door hardware, so I'm cutting out another piece, the same piece on here that I did on the other bulkhead that became the shim. And this is the same hardware that I used on the other bulkhead. It's a doorknob and latch that can be surface mounted rather than having most of the latch mechanism embedded inside the door. And it's kind of clever. It adjusts to doors of various thicknesses by having this square peg like extend into the doorknob as far as it has to adjust for the thickness of the door. And that also gives you a little hollow spot for contraband. That big plate I'm not going to use. I'm going to use this washer instead, because I'm not screwing this into a wood door. I'm actually through bolting it, because the through bolting works better with the honeycomb core. And that other strike plate won't be used either. There's a piece that is surface mounted rather than having a strike plate, embedded in the bulkhead itself. And this is the piece that the latch goes into instead of that strike plate. It's just this little box that the latch will go into, and when the knob isn't rotated, the little tab protrudes into that box, and that just doesn't let the door open again until you turn the knob. And there's a set screw to attach the knob firmly to that square peg at whatever position it has to be in for the thickness of your door. Now both of these walls have doors in them. That's for where the cabin goes forward to the front of the boat, and this is where the cabin goes aft into the sleeping berths.